What happens when you finally step out of your comfort zone and you get called to do the heavy lifting? Welcome back to Choose Purposeful. Today we are opening chapter 6 of Where the Creek Bends. When our world shatters, our first instinct is to build a fortress. For weeks, Mildred has kept her world incredibly small. The quiet cottage and the soft light of her porch were her safe harbor. But today, necessity forces her to cross the border into the bright, noisy, overwhelming world of the store. And it's right there in the canned good aisle that her carefully constructed defenses are completely shattered. She runs into Charlotte, a dear friend from her past life, the same one from the Beast in the Net story. Charlotte does what true friends do. She wraps Mildred in a fierce hug, ignoring all potential awkwardness, and demands that Mildred and Rolly come over to her house for dinner. Mildred's entire body screams to say no. She wants to retreat to the quiet safety of her grief, but she looks down at Rolly. She sees pure, aching hope in his eyes. He is desperate for a portal back to life and back to noise. So she whispers a very fragile, "All right." Saturday arrives, and the dinner at Charlotte's house is a chaotic, wonderful mess of kids, sweet tea, and laughter. Rolly is thriving, coming back to life right before Mildred's eyes. But then, the twilight peace is shattered. A panicked cry rings out from the dark woods behind the house. Charlotte's youngest boy, little Walter, is trapped, his leg pinned tightly under a heavy moss-covered log. In that terrifying second, the heavy fog of Mildred's grief just simply evaporates. She doesn't freeze. The old Mildred, the woman of action, takes command. She positions the adults, she lines up the kids, and together, with a collective grunt of effort, they heave that massive crushing weight off of the terrified boy. In that moment of adrenaline and heavy lifting, the final walls of the polite awkwardness fall away. She has found her community again. But here is the absolute truth about healing. It's never a straight line. As Mildred walks home in the dark that night, the high of the adventure fades. The reality of her empty cottage settles back around her shoulders, heavier than before. She had laughed, she had lived, but as she laid in bed, she was brutally reminded that she was home to a house that was only half full. Are you using grief as a fortress to keep the rest of the world out? When you go through a massive loss, isolation feels safe. The silence is your shield. No one expects anything from you. But as we see with Mildred in the dark woods that night, healing demands that we step back into the chaos. True healing just isn't about showing up at a dinner table. It's about stepping up when it counts. It's about doing the heavy lifting alongside of your community. In the moment of crisis, Mildred proved to herself and to her heart that she was fiercely capable of fighting for somebody else. If you want to heal, we must use our tools to step off the porch. Stop. Stop letting fear dictate the size of your world. Look for the people who are trying to pull you back into the light. Listen to the quiet hope inside of you that wants to reconnect. Feel that terrifying vulnerability of life's noisy, messy chaos, and do it anyway. Healing requires connection. Accept the invitation. Step out of the fortress. Mildred stepped out of her fortress, and even though the grief was waiting for her at home, she made the connection. So let's make a deal this week. Accept an invitation, or extend one. Have a cup of coffee with a friend. Go to a gathering that you might normally avoid, or just call someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Make a connection. Next week, we turn to chapter 7. We're heading back to the water. We're going to watch Rolly face off with a monster in the creek, and we're going to talk about what happens when our nets tear, despite our absolute best efforts. Do not let the safety of isolation rob you of the healing power of your community. May you find the courage to step out of your safe harbor this week. May you be surrounded by friends who smell like lavender and refuse to let you hide. and may you allow yourself to participate in the noisy, beautiful chaos of life. Stop, look, listen, feel, choose. Do the work, practice gratitude, harness peace, and choose purposeful. See you next week.